The mid-Atlantic region, temperatures plunging tonight, where we have those freeze warnings, protect the tender vegetation, and also some frost advisories for the western part of North Carolina. Right here as temperatures plunge with that Arctic.
Certainly Don Larson, 1956, the perfect game. And there's also been some very unlikely offensive heroes. The Marlins
continuing to fly off the lee sides of the Great Lakes. There's that front, so chilly air settling in tonight. Cleveland, Ohio. Snow flurries fill the air as baseball fans prepare for Game 4 of the World Series. Good evening to you. I'm Bob Stokes. The first lake effect event of the season is dumping several inches of snow on areas around the Great Lakes. Lisa Moser joins us now from our forecast center with more. Lisa?
Well, thanks, Bob. Well, if you like snowfall and you like baseball, it's a perfect night in Cleveland tonight. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. Bill Keneally is standing by. But first, let's take a look back to Erie, Pennsylvania. Big snowflakes fill the air in northwestern Pennsylvania this morning. Now, this is Erie County, where as much as 10 inches of the white, wet stuff did hit the ground this morning. And closer to Lake Erie, it was also a lot of snow. So folks had to slow down a bit. We're looking for more snow overnight tonight, as those northwesterly winds across the lakes continue to kick in. Well, as I said, Bill Keneally is standing by live from Cleveland, Ohio. Bill, the snow's been on and off. It looks like it's on right now, Bill.
It is on. You might say we have a flurry of activity going on here as we get into the pregame ceremonies, Lisa. Yes, indeed, it is October 22nd, and yes, indeed, it is Cleveland, Ohio. But even this is something that they would not have conjured up. I mean, average high is 60 this time of the year here in Cleveland. They're not playing football right now. They're going to have to wait a couple of years on that, but it sure has a feel of being the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium. But as we look out here, you can see the roadways are wet. The air temperature is about 36 degrees right now. And again, the snow continues to fly somewhat. It's not too bad right now. It comes in bursts, and I guess that radar, Lisa, is showing a few more out there, so I'm sure we're not quite done yet. Let's take everybody back about an hour ago, show some video of the folks as they were prepping and getting ready to come on in. Traffic really did start picking up by that time. But to emphasize, the roadways are in good shape. We're right here on the lakefront. We're right there. There's no elevation per se anywhere above the lake here, but once you get inland, there could be some snow possibly starting to pile up some of the ridges. But here in town, it is, mid-30s. Snow is flying, and yes, we were all aching about the weather last night. Well, guess what? We're about 10 degrees below where we stood last night at this time. And as they say, we're adding insult to injury with the white stuff coming down.
So one of the coldest games for world history going down in the books tonight, and you're there to brief us and keep us updated. What a hard job, Bill. Somebody's got to do it right. We'll be checking back with you over the evening hours. Well, we come back now to Tom Moore, who's been keeping us updated on this event, a very early lake effect snow event. And Tom, you see the ingredients, the elements come together. Can you elaborate a little bit and tell us why this is a little bit early this year?
Well, certainly is early. The cold air is very cold. It's built up in Canada over the past couple of weeks, and it's come whooshing down over the Great Lakes. And of course, the lake temperatures are very warm. Over the summer, you know, the lakes absorb all that heat, and it distributes the heat and doesn't lose it that quickly compared to the land. So you get that cold, dry air over the warm, moist air, and the warm, moist air rises from the lakes, forms the clouds, condenses, brings the snow, and the prevailing winds take those snow showers right downwind over the states in the Great Lakes area. And
also the diurnal effect. We didn't see very much today. Let's take a look at the satellite picture. We're going to see more and more of these bands adding up overnight tonight. Tell us about that.
Right, the cold front came through earlier, an initial front, and then a secondary surge of cold air came up later. So you have a lot of clear skies in here where it's going to be a frosty night from New York down to South Carolina. But over the lakes, a different story, because this cold air goes over the warmer waters. You can see the cloudiness here. And then, of course, as you go downwind, we have snow in upper Michigan, in the Cleveland area, because the wind is a little more westerly now, passing over Moore Lake than it did earlier. And for the folks south of Buffalo in western New York, looks like we're going to see some snow as well. Now, as we look at the radar here, again, lower Michigan, right there east of Houghton Lake, looks like a little heavier snow. And earlier we had the wind off of two lakes coming off Huron and Erie, bringing some heavy snow about 9-10 inches, as you said before in the video, just to the south of Erie, Pennsylvania. The wind's coming around a little bit more to the west-northwest now. So instead of passing over about 30 miles a lake, it's coming about double of that. So it's picking up more moisture. And that's why we're seeing the enhanced activity in the Cleveland area. But with temperatures above freezing, it doesn't look like the snow's going to stick.
And it's slacked off towards Marquette. We never saw it in the southwestern area of Michigan. That's because of the westerly wind.
Be a penguin. It was snowing rather heavily about an hour and a half ago. Right now it's been reduced to just flurries. Flurries are in the forecast throughout the night. As game time approaches, the temperature now is 35 degrees. The wind chill is 15. Temperatures are expected to drop to about 30 by the time this game ends, making it the coldest game in World Series history, at least until Game 5 tomorrow night. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas. I'll be joined later by Bob Euchre and Joe Morgan. Right now, they're off somewhere building a campfire. Let's take a look at tonight's starting.
NBC10 Winter Olympics, or as the Marlins coach Rich Donnelly put it, Hannah, this brings a whole new meaning to that phrase, winter ball. Cleveland City Showcase has become its snow case.
You know, Keith, I always heard you were a flake, but I think you're taking it a little too far there.
It was a gift.
Marlins manager Jim Leland had some concerns beyond the weather before today's game. He told us he was concerned about his left fielder Moises Alou, who had already been suffering from a left wrist injury in the NLCS, and last night in his final at-bat, it looked as if he had jammed his right wrist. But after some discussion with Alou and a look at him taking batting practice, he did make it a game-time decision, did pencil him into the lineup tonight. Leland told me he's going to keep a close eye on him, and if he does have problems, he is going to insert Cliff Floyd into the left field spot. Keith?
If you think this is an October winter carnival, in 1979, the opening game of the Pirates-Orioles World Series was snowed out. They were calling that one the Winter World Series. The red light wasn't on the camera, it was on Rudolph's nose. Freezing rain and snow plagued the first two games in Baltimore, and it did not get any better when the series moved to that now home of that now extinct bird, the Pirate Parrot.
Well, last night on this Arctic stage in Cleveland,
where the game's going on, and 15 here in Marquette, where close to 8 to 10 inches of snow fell in some areas. So definitely some cold air coming down out of Canada, and standing in that cold air outside of Jacobs Field in Cleveland is our very own Bill Keneally. Bill, what do the Cleveland residents going into the game think of this cold weather and mixing with the World Series?
I don't really think they're too fazed by it, Warren, to be honest with you. I mean, they're more fazed by what happened last night in the 9th inning, I think, than they are about the weather. It's latter October. These things happen, you know. It's not an accident. Lake Erie's only a mile away, and again, Mother Nature doing her dastardly deed, some would say, a little bit early this time of the year. But 37 degrees out there now. We're looking at our trusty thermometer right now. So, Warren, in fact, we've come up a couple of degrees. I know at the height of our snow, we looked out, it was about 34.5, but we had a little break. We came up some, but I think we have a little more snow falling as we speak. It's not very heavy. Tell you what we'll do. We'll take everybody back and look at some video we shot about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago.
And strikes him out.
The Indians turned a double play to end the first inning. Now watch what Gary Sheffield does. He does not fly.
bases are loaded. Still nobody out.
On second baseman, number 1, Tony Hernandez.
Harry Rothschild talking with the bullpen to make sure everything is ready out there. Jim Leland has already made the move. And a pitching change for the Marlins. We'll be back to Cleveland.
Disputing that, at least not for baseball. It's been a lot colder than this at Browns games in the wintertime, but this is, by the opening pitch temperature, the coldest game in World Series history, and temperatures are expected to plummet down near 30 degrees before the game ends. Alfonseca out of the bullpen. I believe Miles Standish was the Pilgrims' starting pitcher that day. This ball is off the wall at the 375 sign. Dalton heads for second, in with a double. So on consecutive pitches, Bonilla and Dalton hit the ball very hard.
Two balls hit very hard, as you said, Bob. This last one by Dalton doubles off the wall in right. That ball really carried Manny Ramirez. A nice play on it. Throw a little bit off target. Dalton in there with a one-out double.
Dalton's had some very good swings the last couple of nights, Joe.
Well, he's a very good hitter. I mean, he's a patient hitter. He knows how to get the hitter to bring the pitch to him. He doesn't go out.
The cold weather are becoming brittle. Didn't look like Williams hit that ball all that bad. All of these guys, most of them, the power hitters anyway.
Weatherscope.
Well, Halloween is more than a week away, but you're brushing snow off the pumpkins in some areas around the Great Lakes. Hello, I'm Sharon Resulton. You've also had a few snow flurries around Cleveland, where Game 4 of the World Series is tonight. But in other places, the snow was piling up today. Big snowflakes filled the air in northwestern Pennsylvania this morning. This is Erie County, where as much as 10 inches of wet, heavy snow covered the ground in some of the inland areas. Closer to Lake Erie, it was mainly just a few snow showers. The lake effect snow has increased in some areas tonight. We continue to work on this wintry weather story in the Forecast Center, and here's Warren Madden with an update.
Thanks, Sharon. We've been following it all night. We've got the snow out there. We've got the cold air out there. Bundle up in the Great Lakes and heading into the northeast, even down into the southeast as the cold air penetrates farther southward. And it is firmly entrenched across the Great Lakes right now. 26 degrees in Marquette, Chicago now down below the freezing mark, so a chilly night along the lakeshore in Chicago. And Cleveland hanging on to a 37-degree reading, but wind chills about 10 degrees colder than that, and we've seen some off and on light snow. And we say we've seen it courtesy of the camera that is now pointing at Bill Keneally, who's standing by outside Jacob Field in Cleveland, where the World Series is still going on. Game 4. Bill, how's it looking right now?
Yes, it's not the Super Bowl, folks. It's definitely baseball, World Series, Game 4, and it'll go down in the record books. Temperatures right now running in the mid-30s here in the Cleveland area. Snow fell. We had a fair amount of snow squall action a few hours back. Thankfully, that is starting to wind down. What do you say, Warren? We showed the folks some of the snow that did fall as we were getting towards the nighttime hours. A couple hours ahead of game time, snow started flying. Not real heavy as we shot the video, but I tell you what, afterwards, wouldn't you know it, it got heavier. And again, it did whiten up the ground briefly, I'll say. But it did wetten up the roadway, and I'm sure it made the field kind of slick inside. And by the way, Warren, we're only about 100, maybe 150 yards behind home plate. And we hear everything, and believe me, it's a very raucous crowd. Weather right now not a big factor as far as they're concerned, provided the Indians keep that 3-run lead I think they have going into the 7th inning.
Well, it just goes to show when your team's winning, the temperature isn't quite so bad out there.
That's right.
Okay, stay with us, Bill. We'll check back with you in about a half an hour. Joining us now from the Forecast Center is senior meteorologist Tom Moore, who is, of course, a big aficionado of lake effect snow. You might say you're the Weather Channel's expert in the field. And wondering how might the weather, the lake effect snow that we've been seeing affect some people trying to head home from the game? What areas might be under the gun for a little bit of white stuff on the roadways?
Well, Warren, over the past couple of hours, we've seen an increase in the snow activity, the lake effect snow band east of the city of Cleveland. So if you're going west out of Cleveland or south out of Cleveland, no problem. But if you're headed toward Geauga County, Ashtabula County, or you get into some of the higher elevations where the temperature is closer to freezing, you might have some slippery roadways in those areas. And I guess we can take a look at the radar and see what we're talking about here. Of course, basically with lake effect snow, we have a lake temperature of 63 degrees. So we have warm, moist air down near the surface. Then we have cold air, about 18 degrees when you're up only about 5,000 feet. So you get the cold air over the warm lake, and the warm, moist air rises, cools, and forms clouds. And right now we're getting kind of a band of snow with a wind out of the west-northwest just to the east of Cleveland into Lake County, where the temperature's a little warmer, so it's not going to stick. But Geauga County and Ashtabula County, where the higher elevation is, we expect a little bit of an accumulation of snow, say south of the I-90 area, east of the city.
Now, last night we were talking a lot about snow that was a little farther to the north and west, up around Lake Superior and coming off of Lake Michigan as well. Not so much up there tonight, though.
Right, where we had an area of low pressure last night in southern Ontario, which was much closer to this area. The flow around the low enhanced the snow off Lake Superior and also off of Lake Michigan. That low is pulled away, and a little bit of a high pressure ridge is built into the UP that's cut off the snow. And even into the lower peninsula, we've seen a gradual reduction in the snow flurry activity even there. So really, as we move through the evening, we're going to focus our attention to the east and Lakes Erie and Ontario. Now, in Lake Erie, last night the wind was more out of the northwest down toward Erie, Pennsylvania. But tonight, with the wind switching just a little bit more out of the west, we're seeing the band of snow into Chautauqua County, Cattaraugus County of New York State. So areas just away from the lake east of I-90 in elevated areas could see about 2 to 3 inches there. Up to Lake Ontario, yeah, more lake effect there.
Right.
Winds coming off the lake, basically out of the west-northwest, coming just to the north of Oswego towards Syracuse. Then later in the evening, we're going to see a little more of a gradual shift to a west wind, and this band could move to the north. Now here we have the Tug Hill Plateau, which rises about 2,000 feet. So you take that warm, moist air and give it a little nudge, a little rise, and you can squeeze out a few inches of snow just to the east there around the Tug Hill Plateau for the evening.
Well, we've certainly been seeing that snow falling. The other big story is the temperature falls. We've seen freeze warnings go up pretty far to the south for this early in the season.
That's right, and you know, you get east of the Appalachians, and of course we have that warm, moist air downsloping, so we clear the skies, light winds, and because of that, dew points are low. The temperature's falling rapidly, so we have frost and freeze advisories from Connecticut all the way down to northeast Georgia, so bring in the plants and tender vegetation. Although for ragweed sufferers, the freeze gets rid of that problem. So there's pluses and minuses to just about everything.
Yes, there's always that trade-off there. Well, Tom, thanks for joining us. We'll be back with you in about a half an hour. Stay with us here on the Weather Channel as we continue our coverage of this early season cold outbreak, and check out our website, weather.com, for more information. Let's check out our forecast now and conditions around the rest of the country with Sharon.
Thanks, Warren. The normally sunny southwest is feeling more like maybe the northeast tonight as a cool rain falls in many spots. Let's take a look at the jet stream, and we'll find a trough in the east and also a trough heading into the western portion or the southwestern portion of the U.S. And it's that trough in the southwest that is creating maybe some cooler than average temperatures, but also some showers. There are even a few thunderstorms to report. I was checking the lightning data, and still quite a bit of lightning heading into south central portions of New Mexico. At the surface, you can see a little area of low pressure as well. Some rain here. This is all slowly shifting on eastward as our trough moves off to the east. Again, there's the lake effect snow in the northeast, but the rest of the nation is fairly tranquil. Not a whole lot to discuss here as far as weather is concerned, unless you're talking about temperatures. And indeed, there's a lot of cool air associated with our deep trough here across the east. And you can see also fairly mild into parts of the southwest, but we do have some cool spots in the vicinity of our upper level low. Potential too for a couple of strong storms. We'll just have to kind of keep an eye on things here. Watch out for any strong thunderstorms. Here's a look at the radar, and again, this is where most of the lightning can be found, south and west of Roswell, New Mexico. We haven't had any severe reports for a long time now, so that's some good news. Earlier up into Navajo County in northeastern Arizona, we had reports of some funnel clouds and one touchdown, a brief touchdown of an F0 tornado. Not very strong, but just enough to show you that there is a little circulation going on there in the atmosphere. As we take you on into your forecast, you'll see that high pressure will dominate much of the east. In the morning, still keeping some of the lake effect snow going, but that eases off by the afternoon. Our upper level trough moves eastward, and as it does, begins to tap into more Gulf moisture, so those showers become more numerous, perhaps on up towards Chicago as we head into the afternoon. A quick peek at your precipitation forecast, and again, maybe 2-3 inches of some snowfall lee of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, especially on into western portions of New York State. Lots of cool air, and the furnaces will be humming across really most of the nation, I would imagine, tonight. The furnaces will click off in parts of the deep south as temperatures rise into the 60s and 70s, but continue to hum across the north. The northern tier is going to see some chillier air, and it's going to stick around even into the daytime hours. Now tonight's El Nino focus.
I don't think we can say enough about these Indians hitters tonight and their patience. No one is swinging at bad pitches. Matt Williams took ball 4 there. Alomar takes a pitch just off the plate. No one's overly aggressive and swinging at pitches out of the zone.
2 balls and no strikes with the bases loaded and 1 out. And if you're just tuning in, yes, that's snow.
Well, earlier tonight, it really snowed heavily here in Cleveland. Nothing that really stayed on the ground, but batting practice had to be stopped for a little while. Both clubs did hit tonight, despite the fact that it was very cold. It snowed very hard earlier, and then things backed off. But it's been on and off all through the game. Little showers of snow here and there.
2-0 pitch. Rifled down to Bonilla, who makes a fine play. Steps on third. Throws to Dalton, who can't handle it. Trying to get the double. So Vizquel scores to make it 7-3. Now Tomey hits one to left. Alou has it lined up. A run for Cleveland in their half of the 6th, making it 7-3. Does that sound familiar? Tonight, trying to protect what is now an 8-3 lead as we move to the 8th. He's got the right-hander Jackson and the left-hander Assenmacher up. You see how effective they were through the first 13 games of the postseason, but last night, not exactly what Mike Hargrove had in mind. Sheffield leads off in the 8th. Joe, when you see him do that little twitching motion before each pitch, even though it's not the same move, is it the same idea that you had when you twitched your left arm?
No, mine was a little different in that I was just reminding myself to get my elbow away from my body. What he's doing is getting his bat started. See?